welcome, Paul Hayes. Thank you for joining us today. So this can be a fun time. We've known each other for a while, and for everybody that's watching, Paul is a top 20% earner and she's done it in a bunch of different ways. So he's been excellent in real estate as a single agent, also as a team owner, as a franchise founder and a franchise owner, and as an investor in real estate. And there's probably some things that I'm missing, but just wanted to share a few of those. That's not what we're going to focus on. Obviously, we want to talk about the journey and we want to talk about what it took to get there. So I guess the first question that we want to hear from you is, why did you decide to get into real estate, or how did you find yourself in the real estate world?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Rick. It's good to see you again. So yeah, real estate is not something that I had planned to get into. So a little bit about me. I was in college down at Virginia Tech. I was down there on a track scholarship and met my lovely wife down there freshman year. And what I didn't know is that we had a class of about 10,000 people, and she was in the top, I want to say the top 20, 30 kids in our class, and had a great job lined up with GE our junior year. So her job was going to dictate wherever in the country we moved after college. And so fast forward, graduated, got married the next month, and we found out that we were going to be in Devon, Pennsylvania with GE Capital. And she got shipped off, went on our honeymoon. She got shipped off to boot camp up in Connecticut for 6 weeks. And in the 4th week, as newlyweds, she sent me down to Devon to find an apartment. So yeah, doing some adulting. So walked into a real estate office, and 2 young guys were in there, and I didn't know where you even looked for an apartment. So I went into a real estate office, a Weichert Realty office, and Dave and Chris were sitting there on floor time. 2 young guys, and this is 2002, and they said, "What do you do?" I said, "I don't do anything. I just graduated, don't have a job, just got married." They said, "You should get into real estate. The market's awesome. This is the best thing ever." I said, "All right, cool, let's do it." So they couldn't help me with an apartment because they didn't do any property management. But 2 weeks later, I had my real estate license. There was an intensive real estate school. So it was every day, 8 to 5 for 2 weeks.
Oh my word.
And we knocked out the classes, took the test, and that's how I got into real estate. So every day.
How old were you then? You would have been
I was 22, 21. Yeah, 21, 22. Yeah.
So I'm going to cut you off a little bit, but just because I talk to so many college students, either in college or just graduated, or I've talked to a fair number of 18-year-olds just out of high school too. They're like, "Oh, real estate seems really cool for me." What, if you can think back that far, what was the challenge, or what were some of the challenges with you being young, being new in the business, and you're in a new area too, right? Because you didn't grow up in that area, did you?
I'll get into that in a second, because
Okay,
it was interestingly enough. So on today's Wednesday, on Monday, the high school that my son goes to, they invited me in for like a career talk. So I had, a classroom full of kids who wanted to learn about, they elected to go to this session. Like, hey, what's it like to be in real estate? So we went through that. There's these freshmen through seniors asking about getting into real estate, and like they're clueless about everything. And I remember being 18, like I was clueless about everything, and I think that it may have gone up until how old am I? Yeah, I think I still feel clueless in a lot of ways. But yeah, going back, like, look, I got my license and showed up every day. And this was a town, you mentioned it, like it's a town that I'm not from. My wife she grew up about 35 minutes away, but like that's like a different town, different area. Like this was all brand new. Trying to figure out, being out of college, independent on her own, newly married, wife's working hard at her new job, trying to kind of make a name for herself. It was chaos. So every day I showed up, in a nice suit that I got and a tie. And I look at pictures of myself back then. And I look at it and think, like, why would anybody have chosen me to help them buy or sell a house at that point? Like, embarrassing. Like, I didn't even own a house. I didn't even have to pay rent in college because, scholarship took care of all. I had no idea about anything. So, and here I'm being asked to handle the highest, the highest valued asset that people have. So it's crazy. And the thing about it is that is still true for everybody today, starting out too, so it's like nothing's changed. But so yeah, there I am. I show up every day and, I'm just, had my phone there, just stared at that phone, just waited for it to ring, just waited for it. And I saw all of these other people, and it was a busy office. All these other people were closing deals and going out to meet people. That phone just wouldn't ring. Like, what's going on? So, I'd show up for everything and nothing was happening. So months went by, and then I feel like that slacker that's like living off his bride, his wife, like she's bringing home the paychecks, and it's kind of discouraging for a while. I felt like I could do this because I looked around, like these people weren't smarter than me.
Right.
They weren't willing to work harder than me, but at the same time, like I wasn't doing anything. So my manager, John, at the time, John Walton, he took pity on me after months and said, hey, I got a call to list a house. He was the manager and not actively selling because he was leading. It's like, how about I refer this to you? I'll go on the appointment with you, and we'll work it together, and this can be your first one. Like, thank you. This is awesome. So first client is an attorney who was a doctor that became an attorney to sue doctors. So that was my first client.
Holy heck. Now, did you ever think about quitting before you got this first client? I mean, you're talking about months.
No, quitting wasn't an option. Because I knew, like, I could see the opportunity in it. Like, I could see that, like, I can figure this out. I need some guidance along the way. And while there was a lot of training that we had at that time, it was more training on marketing and like marketing homes and thinking like less about lead generation. So like when I had a listing, I was sure I could, and a lot of it was at that time was newspaper advertising, something that's completely irrelevant now. Right. But I knew I could do it. I just needed to get clients, and I couldn't figure that part out. So yeah, discouraged, yes, but not, never did I think like this is not for me. So
you just had a tough time. I mean, the interesting thing is that there are still people that would have been in your shoes, because how many months did it take before you finally got the first?
That was about 5.5 months of like nothing. A lot of time spent in, but nothing to show for it. Yeah.
But that's important, because I think, I see it all the time. You've seen it too. We've been in this long enough where folks get in the business and they have a similar struggle, and it can be for different reasons, and certainly a different time, but people can still come to the office. But 5.5 months, if people don't do a deal in 6 months, most of the time they quit.
Yeah.
And what's interesting though is that a lot of those people, they're not actually coming to the office. They're not actually going to trainings, and so they're not even trying, or they're not putting in any effort. And this is a business that I know you know this, but you got to put the work in, and it's a long-term business, and it's a seed planning business. And anyway, I actually didn't know that about you, that there was that long of a gap.
And I think part of it for me was that from a financial perspective, like, look, we were just kids out of college. We didn't have any expense. I mean, other than our just food and rent. Like like we didn't have this was just before we had cell phones. Like this is just like our
You're
expenses were
so
so
old.
low. I know, I say that now and it's geez. But I was able to have that much of a runway because our expenses were so low and my wife's income was good. So I know not everybody's in that situation. If that cushion wouldn't have been there, I would have had to figure out something faster, and maybe that would have put more pressure on me. But that being said, I guess for the audience who's thinking about getting into real estate, set yourself up for success by having a little bit of a cushion, or as much of a cushion as possible, so that you can create that runway for you to get up and running in this business.
Yeah, or just marry somebody that's making good money, so you don't have to, like you.
You should coach on that too. I think there's a niche. Yeah.
If you're all those single young people, find a sugar
Right.
mama or
Yeah.
or papa.
Yeah.
No, so get back to this client, which I'm
Sure.
already scared of, which is a doctor that became an attorney to sue doctors, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So, and by the way, this was an expired listing that he took over. So it was like, somebody who wasn't happy with his previous agent, and who just didn't seem to be happy in general. And the only person more miserable than him was his wife, who I got to deal with on a regular basis. They were just not friendly people. So it was a long settlement, right? It was like a 90-day settlement, and we got it under contract almost right away. But during that time, what I found was I'd wake up every morning and my mouth would hurt, my teeth would hurt, and like I've never had any issues at all with like cavities or anything like that. And I figured I needed a root canal. I didn't know what it was, but this pain, like I'd wake up like taste of blood in my mouth. So I go to the dentist, and the dentist is like, "Are you stressed?" I'm like, "No, I'm not stressed." He's like, "Well, I think you're grinding your teeth." It's like, "Why would I do that?" He's like, "Well, what do you do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm a real estate agent." He's like, "Well, do you have any stressful transactions going on?" I only had one transaction going on, but it's. I think this is the way it normally goes. So, end up settling, and the pain went away instantly. So I think my body, like during the day, I'd feel fine, but I think all of the stress and the anxiety of trying to see this, it was a hard transaction. There's no doubt about it. But all that was manifesting in me like clenching my jaw at night, and it was awful.
So did that continue? Like when you later on in life, do you still
No, I've never had that issue, and I've been in some stressful situations since then, but never again has it been like that. And I think that's like as you get into real estate, look, our job is to solve problems, is to be there right in the midst of chaos. Because let's face it, if it was easy, and this is something a mentor of mine said really early on, if it was easy, then attorneys would just do everything. But attorneys can't deal with these interpersonal issues and all the chaos. So it's our job. And that's why the opportunity is we can get paid better than attorneys, because we can deal with the chaos. Yeah. But it's almost like you got to build up to that sometimes through experience. And that's what our business is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And again, I didn't know that story either, so that's really funny. But like, there are people that quit because they get overwhelmed. And I try to warn people that this is a big deal. Like, there's a lot. It's not HGTV where you show 3 houses, go drink some wine and sign some papers, and all of a sudden you're making good money.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, what were some of the challenges? Like, you got past this first one, and then you got into real estate. I mean, you've been in real estate ever since, right?
Yeah, it's been
no hiatus, no other jobs that you
20 years. Well, so when we moved, long story short, we were in Devon, Pennsylvania for a year. So Katie's job, there were 6-month rotations, but she negotiated that we'd be there for the first year. So listed that first one, and then all of a sudden I got kind of addicted to this whole real estate thing, right? And found that, hey, there's for sale by owners, there's expired listings. I mean, I was driving all over the place, writing out handwritten notes, and my handwriting's horrible, but yet people were willing to list their homes with me because I was going that extra step to connect with them. And so what I found was just like being authentic, showing up, doing things that others weren't willing to do. That set me apart from people in an area where nobody knew me and I didn't know anybody.
And you were super young, like,
yeah, I was 22.
And
Yeah.
what did you ever run into any issues with that, in your 20s, in terms of people going, I think we want to get somebody who's got a little more experience, even after you had experience, just because you're young.
So here's a story. I mean, are you okay with stories?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So, like I said, one of the things that I do is call on expired listings, and there was this one seller, and they had a home about 1.5 million, big home,
Nice.
big home, and he was the president of a company, and it had expired. I want to say like 5 times in the MLS, and I kept calling and calling and calling. And then out of the blue, so this is about 9 months into my adventure.
Now, how often were you? I got to know. How often were you calling?
I was calling I'd call her Valencia was her name. Call her every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Okay. Regularly. And we had built kind of a relationship. So
was she answering the phone a lot? I mean,
yeah, she'd answer the phone. I don't know if caller ID was in existence then. I think it was, but no, she'd answer my phone calls, and we'd always have pleasant conversations. So out of the blue, she calls and she's like, Paul, we're going to relist our house. And I know that you haven't sold a lot of homes, and you certainly haven't sold a home like mine. And I am going to interview the top agent from Prudential, from Remax, from Long and Foster, at Century 21, and I'm going to interview you. But you need to bring somebody with you because I know you can't handle our house on your own. Like, great. So you're saying there's a chance, right? So I call up mentor in the office. His name's Skip. I said, Skip, I need your help. They're interviewing agents in 2 weeks. They had a place in Manhattan as well. I found out what day. It was like on a Thursday, 2 weeks from now. And then I thought, you know what? Let me call her back real quick. I said, Valencia, hey, what if we came up to Manhattan and met with you and presented to you up at your place? Because it was like, 2 hours. It's not the end of the world. She's like, you would do that? I said, yeah, I mean, that's the type of service that we want to deliver. So yeah, later on that week, we went up, and they had a penthouse in some building up there, and it was awesome. We presented, we went up on the roof, we had a glass of wine afterwards, we signed the listing paperwork there. And then I got to call all these top agents from these other brokerages saying, hey, no need to show up for the appointment. That was the coolest thing in the world.
It was like HGTV, actually.
Yeah, like that was awesome. And then we got transferred to Chicago. So I didn't even get to see that transaction happen.
You didn't get a referral or anything?
No, it expired again.
Oh,
so
okay.
But that's the story. But you know what? It's yeah, I mean, now I'm authentic, like all of that effort, and it didn't even turn into a paycheck.
No,
but
what a great
what that showed me was that, look, all you have to do is go one little step more than anybody else, and the gates open wide. So
yeah, no, that's really true. So, but you also got experience. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Like you're able to. I mean, there's not a lot of $1.5 million places in the area that I know you're at right now.
Right.
But that experience is super important, and that's something that I find that a lot of newer agents don't want to get. And I shouldn't say they don't want to get it. They all talk about wanting to learn, but it's this immediate like dismissal of, oh well, why would I do that? I'm probably not going to make any money.
Right.
Or why would I take a referral from someone and I got to pay X amount out?
Yeah.
There's it's almost like, well, I mean, you make the right point. It's you're willing to go that step above or beyond what anybody else is willing to do, and that's a separator.
Yeah. Well, and
Uh,
the thing is, especially when you're starting out in this business, it's like it's important to work. It's to start that momentum, right? So it's like pushing the little snowball at the top of the mountain, pushing it over the top and start having it go down and get bigger and bigger and bigger. Like it takes work, it takes effort to create that inertia. And it takes some creativity, right? And I know, look, you train on this. I know I do too. It's like you start with the foundational things that are not complicated. It's not complicated. It's not necessarily easy, but it's not complicated. Right?
yeah. So then you moved. Now, did you move to where you've been, where
No,
you
so
are
we
now?
moved out
Or,
to Chicago
oh,
for
Chicago. That's right.
yeah, we moved out to Chicago for a year, or I'm sorry, for 6 months. And in that time, like it wasn't worth me getting into real estate out there. Just the timing, just what. So I delivered packages in the Sears Tower.
Okay.
So I spent all day. It's the worst job. It's actually the one of two jobs I've ever had. And so I'd show up in the morning and be in an elevator shaft going up and down the Sears Tower all day. It was awful. But during that time, so a little bit about background. So my senior year in college, my dad passed away. And then same day that my dad died, my mom's oncologist, she had had breast cancer when I was in high school. But yeah, that day, September 17th, 2001. So, 9/11, and then 6 days later is when my dad died. So that same day, my mom's oncologist called and said that her cancer was back and it had metastasized into her brain. So, like, super sucky time in my life, right? Just a lot of just it was just awful. So when we were out in Chicago, my mom, she was just kind of working through everything, and she always seemed to bounce back from everything. But so there was this desire to get back closer to her. So Katie and I talked about it, and we wanted to move back to central Pennsylvania, where I'm from. And Katie said, well, if you can find a job that supplements, a decent portion of my salary, meaning Katie's salary, then we can work on trying to get back home. Right. So I looked around, looked for jobs, and I found a job with a consulting company that worked in affordable housing. So they help put tax credit deals together with developer. It was fascinating, but what I was hired into to do, like it was a means to get me home. But what I soon found was that it was a lot of paperwork, highly detailed, all of those things that like I suck at to begin with. So that lasted for, I guess, a year and a half maybe. And then Katie, she moved, switched jobs, came back. And then Katie and I took a 6-week road trip out west. And when we were out there, so I had left my job. She took an unpaid leave of absence from hers. And we just did all the national parks out west over 6 weeks. And we were walking through, I think it was Bryce Canyon or Zion. It might have been Zion. And I said, Katie, I think I want to try real estate in my hometown, like where people actually know me. I think I feel that there's an opportunity there. She's like, I'll support you. Go for it. So came back and joined a company in my little town. And yeah, it was different. And I ran into obstacles. You talked about obstacles. So I had to transition from the kid where everybody knew me as, the student, the athlete, they remember me like when I was, playing soccer as an 8-year-old, not the person who's going to handle the sale of their house. So there was definitely that transition period that took a couple of years of building relationships and credibility. There's also, I'm in a town that like nobody looks like me, right? So there's just, and we talk about race now. It's an open conversation, and it's chaos, right? And this is just stuff that we deal with. It's part of living in the United States, and we just work through this stuff, and I never saw that as I don't know, I've never I just don't think about it that much. And at the same time, I know that there is an impact on my business because of that, because humans are humans, and it's just one of those things we deal with. But because of who I am and how I connect with people, that has been a barrier that like I've gotten over, right? And it hasn't stopped me from being successful in this business, right? So and I guess the point that I want to make is that everybody is coming at life and at business from different angles, different perspectives. And success, it's more of a mindset than anything else. You can't quantify success, right? So I can't give you like people say, like, hey, like, do you feel like you're successful? And like I feel like I'm blessed, right? Because through real estate, I've been able to take care of my family. Like I've been able to provide a great life for my family. I've been able to give generously. I've been able to have flexibility and freedom, and like it's been awesome. So yeah, if that's success for me. But can I look at somebody else and there's plenty of people around me that like, all right, they're making $2 million this year, $3 million. Like if I look at them and say, well, that's what success is, so I'm not experiencing success, well, then I'm going to feel like trash, right?
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit, because definition. One of the questions I like to ask is like, do you feel successful? Which you already answered. I like to talk about because everybody's got a different definition of success, right? And with you starting early in your, being really young, our success. For most of us, I think what we define success as when we're 18 versus out of college versus married with kids is a little different. So like, when did so you moved back to your hometown, and now a little bit easier because you know people. Then you find out there's some other obstacles that go with knowing people, and know you since you were a kid. Like, at what point was there a point at which you said, "Hey, I made it," or like I arrived, or like you hit a level where you're like, "This is awesome."
So I guess, all right, let's go over the resume a little bit, all right, so, selling agents, there's not selling agents, but selling homes, and was at a company, a very traditional company. And then I saw that there was a financial opportunity it was Remax at the time, right? And so, and what I liked about that idea was rather than being kind of like feeling as if I was an employee without benefits. At one company, I saw the at least how it was marketed to me, like this idea of like you can do it on your own. You don't need the company, right? And
okay, so you were with a more dependent company as a younger person, which probably felt. I mean, I started in the same situation, not young, but with a dependent type company where it feels a little more like home.
Yeah,
you're used to being an employee.
Yeah, it was same brand, by the way, I think.
So okay. So you go to a company that's a little more kind of let you do whatever you want. It's your business. You can be you. You can do whatever. So is that? Maybe I'm jumping ahead. Is that where you started to feel like some success because you did it rather than?
No, I think what it was is, so for me, it was, there's the real estate business, right? And if you look at it as a business, that you are a business owner running your business, if you're in a company that creates friction around that entrepreneurship,
right,
then it's not going to be a fit at some point, right? And that's what I found. So I was moving away from the friction to a company that I felt could allow me the freedom that I was seeking.
So did
Right.
you feel like you were successful at the other company yet?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're like, okay, you're
Yeah.
successful.
I felt like I was successful. Again, it was, based on not looking around me at what other people were doing, but for where I was, for what I needed to do. Because
Now,
if I look at that level of success financially now, I think I should have gone to work at Walmart, like, because it was, but no, it's like, yeah, it was more that I felt like I was moving in the right direction,
did you
right? I
set
was
goals at a
progressing.
young age? Like, do you have goals back then, and that you hit, and you're like, okay, this is awesome, or were goals not a thing for you
You know
early on?
what? I wasn't a great goal setter as far as quantifying, like, hey, I want to make this much, I want to sell this many homes. It was more, all right, for the effort that I'm putting in, am I getting results out of it? And am I growing? Am I learning? It is the opportunity ahead of me worth going after? Like, and as long as I felt like I was moving towards something bigger,
Mm-hmm.
like, that kept me excited and motivated. Yeah. So, you know, switch companies, and then continued, well, ended up going to another company that was launching in the area, and just loved learning, loved the culture, loved the environment, and just got into more production. When you surround yourself with great people,
Right.
all of a sudden, like, you look at everything differently. So that kind of opened my eyes to, all right, what's possible, right? And for me, it was, all right, there's the agent, there's the team, right? But then there's also brokerage ownership, or, like, getting a franchise. And I've always been somebody that's been able to identify opportunities. Um, and I think that for me, just seeing the opportunity and in this case, it was a Keller Williams franchise, like, seeing the opportunity of creating something really excited me, right?
So you were just a single agent then, though, right?
I was a single agent, about 25. Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts of starting a team at that point?
Yes, I had
Mhm.
thoughts of it. And I think this for me personally, like, yeah. So at 25, 26, opened a KW franchise, and I had no, like, full disclosure, I had no business opening up a Keller Williams franchise at that time, and I partnered to do it. Um, but if I look back, if I'm just honest, um, I didn't have the experience. I didn't have, yeah, I mean, on the application, like, we could fill everything out authentically and meet the criteria to make it work. But all of those skills that I just hadn't learned yet,
Right.
you know. So I always say, like, I made more mistakes by the time I was 30 than most people make in their lifetime. Like, that was me,
I'm
which is
gonna,
awesome. Like, I can look back and say, oh, it was such a blessing to be able to go through that.
right.
Um, but challenging, no doubt about it.
So I got a question because you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that you're not highly detailed.
Yeah.
No, you don't like it. Yet there are a lot of details in real estate.
Yeah.
You got to pay attention to a lot of things. How did that? And there's people out there that are the same way
Yeah.
as you. So how did that part of did that not being a strength?
Yeah.
But then you also you didn't have an admin or anything. You didn't have a team at that point in time. You
Right.
were doing it all yourself. What was that a part of the business you hated, or how did you handle the detail part of the
Yeah.
business?
You know what? I've never hated the details. And if I need to do it, I can, right? And I just can't find energy in that, right?
God, okay,
So for me, it's about energy management. Like, if I'm engaging with people, if I'm just making those connections, that gives me energy. But head down in, files and spreadsheets and like that doesn't give me energy.
No, that's it. We're totally going to go on a tangent here because I think this is really interesting. Like when, because you started so young.
Yeah.
When did you recognize that? Because I see a lot of people that are stuck in jobs, or they get out of, they get done their workday and they're just like, oh, I'm exhausted. This is awful. And usually it's because it's a situation that doesn't fit their personality or it doesn't fit their, who they are, and so that drains energy from them. Whereas there's people that have jobs where I think I heard a speaker, and I can't forget who it was, but and I don't know if I agree with it, but I remember that they said if you love 20% of your job or more, you will love your job and have energy left over at the end of the day and be excited about it.
Well, and that makes sense because you think of like Pareto's principle, right? If you love 20% of your job, you're probably getting 80% of the success in that role out of that 20% that you're actually doing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at what age, like, did you learn that about yourself early on? When did you realize like this is sucking the energy out of me? I gotta create leverage and I gotta have somebody else do this, or did you, because I don't think I figured some of this stuff out till I was closer to my 40s.
Yeah. I mean, I would say in my probably in early 30s, that's when I think for me, I discovered that, and again, this is through training and through mentorship and talking to other people and seeing other people who've gone before us, right? And who can then say like, oh, well, just like, you idiot, just hire this person. Like, why are you like, your value is hundreds of dollars per hour. Like, why are you doing something that you could pay somebody $10 an hour to do?
Which is sucking your energy dry.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I think it's just that, and look, it's just part of growing up in the business, right? And in life is learning where you can bring leverage in, and that it's okay, right? Because a lot of people they and some people thrive on attention. Like I'm not that guy that thrives on attention. And I know just from our relationship, you're not that guy that thrives on that attention either. So for me, like, all right, hiring somebody or building a team, it would draw more attention to me. So there was some resistance internally that I had to get through. But then when I hired an assistant that enjoyed doing those things, and I could see her light up, and at the same time, like she's loving doing something that I hate, and and I'm providing an income to her and helping her, and then all of a sudden, like that's the kind of stuff that gets me excited. So let's do more of it.
Yeah, it's when you realize you're helping other people.
Yeah.
And they're, because I don't think I know. I talked to, and coached enough people that they go, oh, why would I hire somebody to do something I hate? Like, why would I bring somebody in to do something they hate? You assume that everybody's like you in a way, and that,
well, and a lot of times it's, and what I hear from, coaching and whatnot is, oh, well, nobody could do it as good as I could do it.
That's a good one too.
And that's just pride. Like, because the truth is, like, if you are the best person to work a file, like if you are truly the best, then that's what you should be doing.
Right.
But yeah, so pride and ego, like those are things that are just so prevalent in our business and our industry. And then if you look behind the scenes, a lot of it is just a lot of insecurity. Right. So.
Well, I'm going to jump back because you just mentioned this. I feel like you went over top of it a little bit, and I know you don't feel like it was an impact really that, and your mindset is such that I'm going to be successful no matter what. I'm going to figure this thing out. But back to the issue of race.
Yeah.
Back to, because we know people, and you're in a rural area.
Sure.
It's not minority heavy,
right.
and we've heard from agents minorities saying it's impacted my business. Like people will talk to me on the phone, but then when they see me face to face, or they'll see my name and it's no big deal, but then they hear my accent on the phone, and then all of a sudden somebody doesn't want to meet with you. How, and again, I know you're saying that maybe it hasn't impacted your business as much, or you've
Oh
overcome
no,
that.
I think it definitely has. I think
Okay.
it definitely has impacted my business, but I choose not to uh quantify that or dwell on that because it doesn't serve me at all. I can't control other people, right?
So what would you say to somebody that it feels like they're in that situation? Like, oh, I'd really like to get into real estate,
Mhm.
but I'm X, Y, or Z, and where I'm at is different, and I
Yeah.
feel like this is going to be a problem for me.
Yeah. Well, so I think if if you choose to focus on that, and again, this is just my experience with talking to other agents, collaborating with other agents, coaching other agents, that if you focus on the negatives, like that's what you'll see. And all of a sudden you fall into a victim mentality,
Mm,
right? Because the thing is, there's so much opportunity out there in real estate that if you choose to focus on the part that is hard or harder access, then you're focusing on that and neglecting all of the opportunity,
mm,
right? So right, wrong, or indifferent, like this is the hand that we've been dealt, and I don't care if like what race or ethnicity, gender, like we live in a country that is not just it, it's there's so much variety, and that's what makes the United States amazing. That's why we love it here. And we have to figure out where are the opportunities that we can capitalize on. And so looking out for, and even like for anybody, just within the industry in general, it's all right, what niche can you get into
mm,
that you can exploit? And I'm not saying exploit in a negative way. I'm just saying, like, what what area of this business can you make a disproportionate return on your investment of time?
mm,
And that's going to be the one that gives you the most energy. Like, and I think one of the awesome things is, if you look, like, there's some agents, on TV, we always see, these beautiful women and men who
mm.
are driving Bentleys and drinking champagne, and like they're like, that's what a real estate agent, like, I have seen some very unattractive people in this business make a ton of money, right? It has nothing to do with the way you look. It has to do with confidence. It has to do with how you carry yourself, but it doesn't have to do with appearance, right? Like your God-given appearance. Now, if you screw that up by dressing like a slob, well, you know, that's on you. But what I'm saying is, there's opportunities if you look at it, and yet there's also parts of just human nature that are going to create barriers, and it's our job to figure out how to get over those barriers, but also, like, once you get over it, help other people across too, you know and if your barrier wasn't there, if there wasn't a barrier, that same barrier, help somebody else around it, because we're all in this together, and that's just what being a good human is. So, and recognize that people do face barriers in this business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. I know, from a fair housing standpoint, um, a lot of the unintentional, unconscious bias of, like, yeah, just against lower income, because we don't make as much money
Yeah.
on lower price housing, right? So people might say, I'm not going to take that lead, or I don't
Yeah.
want to work. It's only going to be
Yeah.
X amount, or I can't understand them. Like,
Yeah.
this is going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And that also reaches into uh, older folks. Like,
Sure.
oh, they can't handle a computer. That means I'm gonna have to drive to see them
Yeah.
and actually have them sign it in person, because so much of what we do now
Yeah.
is just electronic, and it's, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's quick. Um, but I want to kind of shift gears. That's, go different. And it's funny that we keep on coming back to energy. We probably should have a conversation about that.
And we could do this again for a whole other one. Yeah.
But what what, you said you made a lot of mistakes. You were young, and I would expect, when you're that young and doing all these things that you're doing, and one of the coolest things that I like about you, or that I've always been impressed about, is that you do think outside the box. You're like, oh, there's an opportunity. Well, what about this? Or what about this? And even if it never, maybe it's not something you end up
Sure.
chasing, but one of the reasons why I love to talk to you and why I wanted to have you on is just, what if this? And it might be something that's just absolutely crazy that might never happen, but if you don't have that, I feel like if you don't have that perspective, not you, but a person, a people, if we're not, you know, thinking outside the box, which has kind of become a cliche now,
Yeah.
say, but especially in real estate, but in all walks of life, like we look at somebody as successful and say, I'm going to copy that, but you're not that person. You
Yeah.
don't have that experience. You don't have that background. You don't have those skills necessarily. I think that that's really, really cool. But the problem with people that do think outside the box is that sometimes they just are crazy, or you don't have the experience to do it. So there are failures. Like what's probably your biggest failure, or maybe, and you don't have to go into too many details with names or anything
Yeah,
like
sure.
that, but just overall biggest failure, or biggest, something that really impacted you that you thought maybe, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this, or this is, maybe you
Yeah,
thought
absolutely.
quitting, or
So this is kind of a general, how do I want to say this? So the failures that I've had in business
mhm,
have all, um, they've all been tied to getting into business with the wrong people,
mm,
right? Or like from as an agent, hiring admins. So a fault of mine that I recognize is I tend to see the best in people, right?
mm.
So I can look at somebody and I can see the person that they could become, right? And
Which
I'm
is
an
a really good thing,
it is, it
except for
is.
maybe
Except when it impacts your business, right? So I've paid a lot of money to people over the years to allow them to have me do their job for them
Hmm,
because they weren't doing it themselves,
well, that's great
right?
business. Yeah.
So no, and so like I see these opportunities out there, and then I see the people who I think like they've got what it takes to help me get there, and we can do it together, and it's going to be fun. But then I realize at some point, usually sooner than later, that it's not a fit. Like we don't have a fit in how we approach things or work ethic or goals, or you know and then I spend way too long trying to figure out, all right, how do I land this plane safely where everybody can move in their own separate directions peacefully, right? Because I'm a peacemaker, right?
Right.
So the failures that I've had have all, I mean, that's the root of the failures. It's the people that I've surrounded myself with, you know. And that being said, I don't know that I change a lot of it because I do value, like I appreciate the people. You know, what I've gotten better over the years has been doing a better job of setting criteria to identify people for different roles, and that comes through experience and through coaching and guidance. Yeah, and having systems, hiring systems. And I know that's something that you can
Yeah.
coach on and train on. Yeah.
So what I'm fascinated by is, so you have a team,
Yep.
you've had a team. Like, I'm always fascinated by people that keep getting, like they have failures, and they keep getting up and doing it, trying it again.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe a little PTSD on my side, but like if I have a major failure, or like, I'm probably not going to try something similar again. In terms of like, that sucked, that was
Yeah.
damaging, that hurt, you know, like I don't want to risk going down that path again. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about like it just, I don't want to say a normal, an obstacle where you go, okay, I failed, but I can make this better, and I can, like, when you're talking about a lot of money, or you're
Yeah.
talking about damaged relationships, um, you know, how did you take some of those pains and those Because I know they're
Well,
stressful. I know they were costly.
yeah.
And say,
And I
oh,
think,
let me just try this again. Or
well, and I think part of that is taking responsibility for your own part in the failure, right? So, if I look into past failures, whether it's, hiring team member, like, look, I hired them, right? It wasn't them who forced their way into my world. Like, I hired them. So, like, that's on me.
it's
So am
true,
I
but
saying,
like, is it just like overwhelming self-confidence? Like, okay, because at some point, I think people would say, or some people would say, maybe I'm just not good at this and I shouldn't do this again. This
well, but
isn't
that's,
fair.
and that's fair, and that might be the case, right? But, and in some ways, like, I've chosen not to continue doing certain things,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
So it's not like I've, like, all right, I've never not given up something, right?
right.
But what I'm doing now, right? It's a culmination of all of those past experiences, right? And understanding the obstacles and the challenges and how I'm wired, because I'm not the same person that I was 20 years ago,
Yeah,
right? Or 5 years ago or 2 years ago, right?
yeah.
So every day it's having that learning based mentality of, like, every day I'm going to improve upon myself, right? And so I think that's where I'm kind of coming from. So it's, I mean, look, if you found a great investment property that you saw, like, oh, it's amazing, and then you buy it and you find out that, there's some big issue and you lose money on it, and then another opportunity comes along and you're like, "Ah, well, I could make 50,000 or 100,000 on this deal, but because I lost 5,000 on that one, I'm not going to I'm done. I'm done."
But,
No,
but there's a lot of people that are like that. Like I hear that's a great example because I hear
yeah,
people a lot say, oh,
yeah, I tried that.
you have investment product. I did that. That was,
Yeah,
I wasn't making any money. That was
yeah,
a failure. And you and I know because we have different experiences.
right.
Like they probably bought the wrong thing, or they probably said, but from their perspective, they're going, yeah, that sucked, and I would never do that again.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
so,
but in that
what is it?
situation, yeah, they're not taking accountability for their part in it, you know, and what could they have done? So it's kind of, there's a term that's used in business, doing a post-mortem on an
Right.
opportunity, right? You know, something closes, you go back and, all right, what would have happened to prevent this from happening so that you can move forward and not make those same mistakes again. Yeah.
So you would say it's really just about taking responsibility and really seeing what could you have done different and what you can learn from it and having that attitude that allows you to
Yeah.
keep trying
And
to
deciding if it's worth it, right? So is it, because there's a cost to everything,
right.
right? So, and the cost might be that you have to change yourself, right? You have to change, like, all right, if I'm trying to hit this goal, then yeah, I can do it, but it would mean that I need to wake up earlier, or I need to be more disciplined with my schedule, or it might mean I need to take less vacation. Is it worth it for this opportunity? And then you have to weigh it out. So,
Well, I think that's perfect for people that are getting into real estate or thinking about it. It,
yeah.
it, it does apply to that because
Oh, absolutely. I
there is
remember Gary Keller at a talk that he gave, no, years ago, but I've, heard it numerous times since. Um, he said, what you don't realize when you get into real estate, the first thing that you have to get real with is that you can lose everything. Just business in general. Just the first thing that you have to get real with is that you could lose everything. And once you get past that, then the opportunity is for riches you could never even imagine. But you have to be real with the risk involved of, and a lot of it isn't the financial risk, it's the risk to our ego, right?
yeah.
It's, what if I can't make it? What if I don't make it? And what if I look like a fool? What if the people who said that I'm crazy, what if they end up being able to say, ha, I told you so? Like, it's those emotions that hold people back. But you and I have seen those agents that, and you know exactly probably who I'm thinking of when I say this. Like they're just so out there that everybody would look at them and say they'll never make it in real estate. They're an embarrassment to themselves and our business. And they're crushing it
Yeah.
because they've found people that resonate with them, and there's enough of them to provide a very high income, right? And they're willing
Yeah.
to just like let the haters hate and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, it's certainly something that I know, but to talk about and to think about it, like now you've got me, remembering a lot of agents that failed that they were never willing to go for it.
Yeah.
Like they would straddle the line. Like, okay, why didn't you didn't come to the office, or you didn't go to any training, or you're in, but you're not, you're like, they're afraid to go do something or be themselves or, um,
Well, I think be themselves. Like there's a lot of, I'd say the majority of agents are trying to fit into this mold of what they think a real estate agent
yes, yes,
is supposed to be like, right? And they're not being authentic. And people sense when you're not authentic, right? And people don't like to be around people that aren't authentic. So, and that's where finding the part of the business that really resonates. Like if you love and working with investors and investment properties, and like there's a ton of business there.
right.
If you enjoy working and working for and serving seniors, like at a really deep level, and really and want to go slow and methodical and sit with Ethel for hours and listen, and guess what, there are riches in that, short sales, foreclosures, luxury, like you name it, and there's an avenue to dig deep into an area of this business that you love the people you're working with, and you're known for that, and it doesn't feel like a job. So
Yeah, being authentic is, can we say it's a skill? I mean, I think it's interesting because even kids, like I've done a lot of coach, we both
yeah,
have kids. You end up coaching your kids if you've been
yeah,
in sports, a lot of times. Even children at some base level can tell if their coach is being authentic and really cares about them and really wants them to get better, or if
yeah,
they're just there for their own child, or they're just there for their own ego or
true.
their own wins. Like it's almost at a young age we appreciate that and know that it's real, yet we become adults and somehow it's hard to be authentic, or we're not comfortable with being it, or
Yeah.
and why do you think that is? You weren't
Because
expecting this question, I'm sure, but we're gonna.
no, for the I think I think that part of our human nature is trying to fit in and be accepted by the people that we're around, right? And oftentimes, well, and what that means is to be average, right? You want to be
Oh,
the average, the people that you surround yourself with. And I've seen that relationally as my business has picked up, as my income, at like you you're going to find friction and tension in relationships. I mean, if we're real, as soon as you get your real estate license, I remember this, as soon as I got my real estate license and had my picture on my sign or a business card, or I sent out my first mailer, right, that had a picture of me, all of a sudden I'm this public figure. Like I think I made, I don't know, 15 or $20,000 my first year in real estate, right? Just a handful of settlements, like nothing, like I'm not that guy that anybody could point to and say, oh, he came on the scene and just blew it up,
mhm.
right? But yet I was like a celebrity to some people. Oh, you're in real estate, because they're already like thinking like, all right, he's in real estate, he must be making huge money. Then get reached out to for sponsorships and donations, and like, you must be making all this money. So like, can you share some of that newfound wealth? And of course, as the agent, right, I don't want to be honest with them and say, actually, I didn't make much money this year at all. I'm not financially successful in this business. Like, that's not how you put yourself out there. So I found myself very early, like, this tension of like, all right, how, like, is it a white lie to say I'm doing well? Like, I'm happy, but I'm not making money, or like, yet, and so it's, we wrestle with those things. But then as the income, as everything goes up, then there's other people that are, you're friends with, that all of a sudden, in some ways, there's this separation based on the conversations that are being had around you, which is, there's the cliche, but there's truth in it. Like, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and there's a lot of truth to that.
There is.
So choose your people wisely.
Yeah, absolutely. You made me, my wife was making fun of me the other day about one of my early realtor mistakes.
Yeah.
I sent out a whole bunch of postcards and I spelled realtor wrong because it's realtor. And so I put an I in there, and she still never lets me live that down.
Yeah, well, now that I know that, I don't know that I can let you live that down either.
And that's okay. It just shows that you can be terrible at spelling and proofreading and still be successful in real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's jump into and we're actually spent a lot of time here. I guess let's talk one thing. I want to talk about overcoming obstacles.
Yeah.
And I don't know what was. Let's talk about something that was a tough obstacle. Again, doesn't have to be super detailed, but because I know, we talk about your story and things of that nature, but I know nobody gets to where you are in life and without there being obstacles. And usually the difference between people that are talk about the 80-20 rule, but the reason are people that are in the top 20% is because they're usually willing to overcome and persevere and be persistent to get through whatever those bumps or obstacles are that the other 80% wouldn't do. So can you share with us, maybe one instance where you had to overcome or did overcome something that most people wouldn't, and what the why and how, like what made you keep going?
As it relates to real estate, I'm trying to think of what a good example would be.
Well, even maybe not real estate, but maybe life, because we have to live life while we're working, and the way real estate is so.
Well, all right. So the biggest obstacle in my professional career would be when we opened up the brokerage in 2008, right? So we launched a KW franchise in 2008, and our office that we leased was way too much. So the day we signed this lease, the stock market tanked.
Oh.
And then it did it again the next day, into the crash of 2008 through 12.
Yeah.
So agents that we thought were going to come to the company didn't come. Like, so everything because of how it was put together, and again, I think I said, I take ownership. I will take ownership of some of those decisions. But that put me in a position. I mean, here I am in my early 20s, mid 20s, and we had personally guaranteed a lease that was adding up to millions of dollars over the 5 years, right? So,
holy cow.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was brutal, and for months, every month, my partner and I would contribute money into this that that wasn't coming from the revenues of the company. It was coming from savings, right? So the challenge with that, right, here is, Noah, who's now 16, like, he had just been born. Lily, Katie was pregnant with Lily. So here we are. She was staying home. She wasn't working. So stay-at-home mom, father of 1.5 kids, and it stretched us so thin financially, emotionally, time. Like we're moving right now. So next week we're moving. So part of the moving process is going through all the stuff we've accumulated, right? And it's been 14 years in this house. And so we're going through stuff in the basement, and I'm seeing notes that Katie read or wrote me during that time, and I kind of almost get choked up like reading them over the last couple of days. But just the faith that we had. So like faith, like that's what sustained me. Like, I'm a Christian. It's a huge part of who I am. But then having like the love and support, unconditional support of my wife, and so for everybody listening, like having that support network around you as you get into this business, so important, not just from like helping you get through the hard parts, but also like the ability to tap into their networks as well.
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing that I was called to do this for a reason, right? And I believe that. I never sought out real estate. It kind of sucked me in, right? And why? Like I don't know. And I still think that there's something bigger. There's something bigger for me. And real estate is a vehicle to make that happen. Right.
Oh,
So just having that faith and that hope that I'm doing this for something bigger, and that I'm a just part of that, it can get you through the rocky times. It gets me through the rocky times.
mm-hmm.
So I guess and then it goes back to learning from the mistakes and just continually, like it's Paul Hayes, like 2.0, 2.3, 3.0. It's like I'm like an iPhone. Every year is a new version.
A new upgrade.
Yeah.